But one thing that I cannot let go is what you talked about, the receiver play.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, Harley dropping a wide open touchdown pass. Harley, you're a senior. Pope, the ball's floated perfectly over a defender. One of the hardest throws to make, to me, and I could be wrong on this, but to me it looked like it was a cover two type of look where you got to throw it in between the corner and the safety, and De'Aaron King throws it right over the fingertips of a defender. Pope, you got to at least make the catch.
Yeah, for sure.
This week, we lost a cornerback, Christian Williams, former four-star, and we don't know the exact reason, but a lot of people think because of the play of DJ Ivy, Christian Williams thought he deserved more times. That was just a rumor, And I said this in a group chat. If our receiver play continues this way, we may lose some of these young receivers that we've been bragging about all year. Now, what I want you to do is either talk me off the cliff on that statement, or do you think it's time for us to give some of these young bucks a chance?
Yeah, it's the one thing that's hard is that, like, how good some of the guys are just based upon the high school play and the reputations they come in with, but you never know exactly how they look in practice. Never know how they're picking up on the little things that the coaches really need from them. And if when last year with Stubblefield, like, you can imagine Stubblefield, like, less experienced, he could be playing favorites, or he could say, like, this guy might be better, so let me get him out there, and without really trusting the opinion. But Coach Likens, he's got so much experience, and he knows the position so well, and he's produced NFL players, guys that maybe should have never even had a shot at the league. He developed them into NFL players. So you have to trust his judgment, but at the same time, you really hope that these young guys are able to get on the field, because there's some talented kids that we have as freshmen, as true freshmen. And you see Michael Redding getting a little bit of time in there. Physically, he's the one that, like, you think right away, well, look at this guy. Like, this kid looks like he's a third-year player. Restrepo obviously impressed a lot with people that were watching through camps and stuff. So you hope that they can, just so that you have depth there beyond just the top couple guys, especially, not sure exactly what Peyton's deal is going to be going into next week. So you hope that they'll step up, or at least just have the older guys just make those plays. Those older guys make those easy plays they're supposed to make, and we're not even having this conversation.
All right. So do you think the coaching staff is going to, this is just obviously us talking a speculation, but do you think, these guys like Pope, Harley, give them a chance, continue to ride with them, or would you like to see a rotation of the younger players?
I think as the year goes on, they're going to get more time, be it just to, like, make sure that they're ready to go when their time is, like, officially called.
I mean, because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I do want to say next week is Florida State prime time under the lights. No matter how bad Florida State is, it's going to be a nerve-wracking game. I feel like it would be kind of irresponsible just to throw them in that spotlight.
Yeah, and it's got to be tough. You got to pick and choose your spots, and the first three games we've had are going to be primetime TV games. Like, yeah, the first was ACC Network, but it was still, like, one of the only games on at the time. So if you wanted to watch football, you were watching that one, So I think there's no, like, warm up easy game against whoever that you can just throw whoever you want on the field and, like, get them run. So you're right. It's going to be a stressful environment whenever they get in there. And I think about in years past when we've been forced to play young guys against teams like Florida State, even knowing what the deal is with Florida State this year so far and the expectations being very low, the environment will be intense because of how well those guys know each other and the long history of the rivalry. So it would add a lot to it. And I'd love to get a couple of guys some run there. And if they can handle it, it's a great sign for our future for sure.
So last week we talked about, and one of the things you mentioned was the lack of having Brevin Jordan involved in the offense. And tonight, 7 receptions, 120 yards. one touchdown. 47 was his longest. He's jumping over people. He's making these amazing catches. He's lined up inside. He's lined up outside. What are your thoughts on how Rhett Lashley used Brevin Jordan and just your overall thoughts of his play tonight?
We joked last week that, it was so strange to see that, like, the guy that is obviously your best offensive player, maybe like he and King right there, but one of the guys that's your best offensive players not being a featured part of the offense. And I was like, well, the only reason that they wouldn't make him a featured part of the offense this week is because they're trying to hide everything for next week, and everything they do is centered around Brevin. And it kind of came to fruition pretty early. I think it was the first pass of the game was designed for him. They were lining him up out in the slot quite a bit. They had him in that wing back spot that he used a lot when he was up at UConn. They really put him in a lot of different positions. And I think on top of that, you knew it was something that they really worked on because Mallory was on the field a lot more. And even Mallory had like his own design thing to be out there with Jordan. So I'm sure Lashley was going through his options and figured out that having these two guys on the field as much as possible was really a benefit. And Mallory had that one long play called back. So if that wasn't called back, it would have been like the tight ends combining for almost 200 yards of receiving between the two of them. So I think Lashley definitely knew that he had to get Brevin the ball as much as possible. I mean, in your opinion, Grant, like, is there a guy on our offensive side of the ball that is a harder mismatch for defenses?
I think Brevin and King, I think both of them are mismatches, but it's what do you do? It's what do you do with Brevin Jordan as a defensive guy? You put a linebacker on him, do you put a safety on him? And it's tough. It's tough. And I think King, it's so crazy because I think King is the perfect quarterback because when King puts that football out, for Cam Harris, the play fake for Mallory or for Brevin Jordan is going to be there.
Yeah, for sure. And that's that thing. And we saw it later in the game when the pass to Pope, where Pope almost took it in for a touchdown. And then we also saw it on the Knighton play where the linebackers were frozen just by the thought of it being QB power. They have to play up. And, those linebackers, like you said, they're not going to be able to run with Brevin Jordan. Safeties aren't going to be able to jump and be physical with Brevin Jordan. And corners, you might as well forget it because he's just going to body them off in about half a second. So, they need multiple guys there to cover him. High-low bracket something. And you can't bracket a guy if your linebacker's taking 3 steps forward expecting it to go to camp. So I think they'll continue to do a lot of damage with him. And I think no matter who we play against, even if it's a team like Clemson, the King to Jordan match, like the King to Jordan connection, that's good enough to beat them. But the problem is are the other 9 guys good enough to beat them, that's going to be tough.
And I'll say this, and this is where our wide receiver play comes in. When you play a team like Clemson, I actually watched the first quarter of Clemson, and literally Clemson versus Wake Forest, I think it was week 1. And the first drive, 2 freshman defensive linemen got sacked. So why that's important is, teams are going to eventually say, okay, if Pope is dropping balls, if Harley's dropping balls, if we can't connect on deep passes, well, we're just going to stack the box. We're going to double Brevin Jordan. We're just going to see, can they beat us? If they beat us deep, we'll risk it. So I think there will be a point where we need our wide receivers to make big plays. We're not going to need them against Louisville, obviously. We're not going to need them against UAB, obviously. We won't need them against Florida State, I don't think. But when you go up against teams like Clemson, like a Notre Dame, those coaching staffs are going to say, let's stop Brevin Jordan and let's try to let everybody else beat us.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of like what we did on the defensive side of the ball for, I know later in the game it got kind of away from us, especially as time of possession started getting slanted more towards Louisville. But, early in the game, there was